Hey, I know
Hey,
that.
Troy.
Dude, I already hit record. I just wanted you to know.
Oh
I
yeah, I just heard. I was gonna remind you if you did.
appreciate that. Here, give me 1 second. I got a meltdown. Hold on.
All right.
Oh man. All right. I appreciate that watching out for me thing. I'm my own worst enemy on that. I think it's weird. You start seeing these commercials, everything's all about people getting older and Alzheimer's and everything else. And it's like I remember thinking a long time ago, like, whatever. Because that's just the way it is when you're young, right? And then,
Yep.
man, the older I get, the more I'm like, man, who remember that guy? And it's like, man, what is his name? Where did he go to school? It's like after a while, I'm like, man, I don't even remember what I'm thinking. It's like I worry about that stuff. I started to do crossword puzzles and little the brain games and all that. I gotta do this genetic breakdown thing. This guy, Brad Kearns, is this guy that I follow. He's a decathlete, or former triathlete, high level training guy. You see him now, he's 55. He's still in outrageous shape. He's talking about, diet and sports, a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in. And he's talking about this new genetic testing that can just show, where your genetic weaknesses are, like the things that you are predisposed to have trouble with. It could be metabolizing a certain kind of food, or maybe you have a genetic marker that, for Alzheimer's or for this or for that, it's like, yeah. And then what do you do when you find out you have that marker? How do you attack it? There's certain kinds of food you can eat, certain kinds of things you can do. So, man, 60 is not easy. Just remember. Mm. Huh.
Gosh.
Mm. All right. I got my Zip Fizz. I'm loaded. That's my first sponsor, even though they're not paying me. I'm paying them. Um, all right. Well, hey, welcome to another edition of Raise the Bar. We're here today with Dontavious Hill, our gracious guest, who is just returned, and I was looking forward to the aftermath of the Olympic trials. So Dontavious just got through this season with your best performance ever, right? You jumped 7.5 which is what, 225, 226?
226, 75 even.
7.5 even, 226. And got himself into the Olympic trials. And I remember you telling me in our pre-Olympic trials podcast that you were going to go there and you had your game plan was all set. You're going to open at the lowest height and jump everything, right? So after that, I don't know what happened. So you tell me, how did everything go? What was it like in Eugene, man? Was it electric? Was it amazing? How did it go?
So Eugene, I arrived on the 24th, and I arrived on the day right before break. So I think they had the semifinals going on that day. So I got to go to the track and watch a little bit. It was some good energy in the stadium. They
Mm-hmm.
had the women's high jump going on, so I got to watch the women's high jump. And then it was a 2 day break before I had to compete in the qualification round. And I pretty much spent a lot of that time thinking about, you know what, do I want to start at the opening height? I was guessing, I'm like, I know that 219 will probably get through,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which is the second bar. And I was like, I feel capable that I can do that. And so I kept wavering back and forth, like, oh, what do I do? What do I do? Just entirely thinking too much. And I ended up deciding to start at 219. And it just, I guess I had a little more pressure on myself than I realized.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think I was going to put a lot of pressure on myself. But when I got out there, I just didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel like as happy as I usually do when I'm jumping. I wasn't having fun. I was just like a little tense. I felt small. That's the best way I can put it.
Right.
And I never felt that before at a big competition. Well, I felt it before, maybe my first time in NCAA's.
Right.
And I thought the pressure would be off just because, I've been to USA's and done well on two, three occasions,
Right.
but those USA's were not Olympic trials. So I learned a lot, but I didn't clear my opening height, which was 219. So I no
Mm-hmm.
height at Olympic trials after three solid looks at it, but yeah, I just couldn't get going.
Yeah. So, man, it's got to be disappointing. And it sounds like it's one of those things, almost like don't speak evil of the dead. Here we are going back over it. It's like, do you want to just ignore it, put it behind you. But I think, very graciously and wisely, you're looking at it, with both your eyes open and examining what you did, and it's one of the hardest places, I think, for an athlete. We don't talk about it a lot here, but Barbara has mentioned it to me a couple of times. And, sometimes a big disappointment or just a meet where you just didn't do well, for some athletes, it can be career ending. It can be like, that's it. They throw their hands up in frustration and they quit, and for others, it can really turn into tremendous motivation, where you're like, oh man, I was so close. But like you said, when I got there, I lost my mojo, I lost my feel, I did this, I put too much pressure on myself or whatever. And there's no real way to prepare for it until you go there and do it, right? You've never been to an Olympic trials before. You're a young man, you've had a great career, jumping at the collegiate level. And you've been an All-American, you've jumped at big meets, you've made travel squads for the US, so not your first rodeo when it comes to big meets, but still your very first Olympic trials. So, who knows? You just don't know how you're going to react. And my personal opinion is every once in a while you get someone who's completely unaware and they just go and they just perform out of their minds, right? Because they just really don't even know almost either A, what the level is, or B, they just don't get the pressure, right? They're just like, for whatever reason, they're completely free and easy. But I think 90% of the jumpers and all athletes, the first time you step up to a certain level, man, it's difficult. There's a definite learning curve. What was it like watching even in warmups? Could you tell in warmups that you were, not feeling right, or was it like,
Well, yeah. So usually when I warm up, I do my sprint drills and things, and I take my approaches, pop-ups, but I don't hardly ever take any warm-up jumps. It's just something I haven't done over the past 2, 3 years, really.
right?
And I've been successful without doing it. But that's what I thought until I reminded myself that I usually do take warm-up jumps because we talked about this in the last podcast that I
Hmm.
usually come in low.
Yeah.
So all my competitions, those are considered my warm-up jumps. Even though I'm starting a competition, those are warm-up jumps. And um just I jumped 7.5. I didn't jump the bar. I didn't use technique over the bar in the warm-ups. I just, did pop-ups and things. So I just tried to stick to what I've been doing. When I
Hmm.
jumped 234, didn't do any warm-up jumps over the bar. I was just trusting that I had it. But at this meet, I stutter stepped a little bit in my warm-up. I just didn't feel comfortable and I was a little shy. I felt small out there, Troy. And I think part of it was because of in my last two USA trials, I wasn't expected to perform well.
Right.
I came in as like the numbers 15 seed. I got third place or something like that. The other time I came in like top 11, I got sixth place, but one bar away from getting third. This time I was fourth in the US, which I have been before, but I was the only other jumper in the world ranking quota without the standard. So
Right.
it was really only between me and another guy who were gonna make it, which was Vernon Turner. And I was thinking about so much. So in order to block all of that out, Troy, I said, you know what? I'm gonna do what I think that I should do. And that is come in at a higher height that I know will get through. Because that has worked for me the majority of the time I've done
Right.
it. But one thing I told my family and my friends, I'm like, come opening height at 7.8 confidently feels much different than opening at 7.2 not confidently.
Right.
It's a 6 inch difference, but if your mind is in a different place,
Yeah.
that bar is gonna almost be unattainable.
Hmm.
And that's just what it was. The lack of confidence, the lack of, feel, it really took a toll on me. But yeah, I already knew in warm that I was nervous, but future reference, I learned so much from this.
Yeah.
Like some people they'll throw their hands up like I'm done. I got notes written down about what I did, what I didn't do,
Yeah.
no warm-up jumps. That's not gonna happen anymore. I gotta take warm-up jumps. It's the Olympic trials.
Right.
Like I learned so much from this.
Yeah. Yeah. You were talking about that too, and we talked about it before last time. I was like super interested in both getting to the Olympic trials itself, but also, how do you get onto the team and how do you continue? Because there's a lot of things you got to do. Like you said, you have to have the Olympic standard. It doesn't matter where you finish, right? You can finish top three, but if you don't have the Olympic standard, from my understanding is you don't get to go. Is that correct to this point?
Well, there's one more way that you can go. It's only if you're in the top 32 in the world ranking quota. And that's how I was going to be able to go because I
Mm-hmm.
was in the top 32. So in hindsight, looking at it, the competition, Vernon Turner ended up making the team. He didn't have the standard this year. He's a great jumper. This was his third Olympic trials. He ended up making the team, and he jumped 214 on his second attempt and didn't make the final. So in hindsight, looking at it, for me, had I cleared 214 on the first attempt, I would
You
have made the team. I would have
wow.
been the first. And that's just how simple it was. And I knew that going into it. I said, you know what? With all these circumstances, I can try to beat him and I can not make the final and I can still make the team. And I said, you know what? That is some weak thinking of me. I'm thinking bare minimum thinking,
Mm-hmm.
going in, trying to scrape at the bottom of the barrel. And that is not who I am. So
Yeah.
I just forced myself into the situation to open at 219 and just hoped I was going to come through and get it done, but I didn't.
So when you're there, did they number one, you're talking about the stuttering on the track. So I've thought about that. Was the surface different? Have you been there? You've been there before, right? At Eugene? Not a first
Yeah.
time there because of NC2A finals, right? You've been there before.
I've been to Eugene on 3 occasions. I jump well every time I touch that track. I
Mm-hmm.
jumped 7.3 at NCAA's and placed third. That same year, I jumped 7.3 and a quarter and placed third at USA's. 2023, I jumped 7.3 and placed sixth. I jumped well every time there.
Yeah.
It wasn't the surface, it was my mind.
Your mind was, yeah, not right. It's so funny you talked about that, Dontavious, because the mind is a terrible thing, right? It's like I tell the kids all the time, I go, when you're wrong, when you're rolling, there's nothing like it. Everybody talks about the zone, right? There's guys that have hit, I think the record in baseball is 8 games in a row hitting a home run, right? One of them's Ken Griffey Jr., one of my favorites of all time. There's a couple other guys. I mean, 8 consecutive games in a row hitting a home run. It's got to be an amazing kind of a groove. Doesn't matter who's throwing the pitches. Reggie Jackson for the Yankees homered on 3 consecutive pitches in the World Series game from 3 different pitchers in a Dodger uniform. First pitch, bye, out of here. Not even close. You think about getting in a groove. When you're in a groove, everybody talks about it, and there's a certain feeling to it. And there's like, everybody wishes they could figure out how to get in the groove and how do I stay in the groove, right? Like I've had holes when I'm playing golf where I'll play for 4 or 5 holes in a row where I'm like, hit it right down the middle, knock it on the green, and make a decent putt or make a birdie putt. I think my career record's 3 in a row. I know, and for the pros, it's like 12 holes in a row or something birdies. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I'm playing great. And then, it all blows up. But, getting in that, finding it, getting in it, staying in it. How do I stay in it? And the flip side is the complete opposite, like you're talking about. I mean, I've had those times when I was jumping where I was like, I knew before I left, there was no way in God's green earth that I was going to make that bar. I mean, I have already convinced myself I can't do it. I'm out of control. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm running up, you're jumping, and I tell everybody, I go, you can go super, super fast and jump up, and I'm not, I don't remember anything. I go, I don't remember if I hit my takeoff. I don't remember what the flight was like. I mean, it's like it's over, and I don't even have any recollections. But when it's clicking, it seems to me like time slows down and goes the other direction. Like instead of speeding up where I can't even spot myself in the stream, it slows down to where you can see everything in slow motion. Almost like Quicksilver in the Avengers, and everybody else is regular, just standing there, and he's zipping in and out between them. It's like I can see the arms, the knee drive, hitting the takeoff, flight. Here comes the bar. It's in the right spot. Okay, now I'll lay out. It just like slows down to a crawl, and you see everything. And I don't know, that could just be me, but it's like that place that you're talking about, there's a multi-trillion-dollar contract waiting to be had if we can figure out, right, how do I get you in the zone and keep you in the zone, right, at big meets. So what are some other things you learned from your experience there, like in getting ready, not just for the meet itself, the competition, but even in your training and, leading up to the trials and all that stuff. In 4 years, coming back here to California, either jumping at or in Oregon at if they're having it at Eugene, or let's say at Mount San Antonio College here in California, they're having the trials there. 4 years from now, you're 29, you be 29.
28.
28, 28-year-old man, you've been jumping as a pro for 4 or 5 years. What's going to be different in how you attack that?
Well, one thing I know that's going to be different is my meet day preparation, like my warm up.
Mhm.
I got a very, I'm really focused on that warm up because it's worked. It's worked for me all year long. 220, over 226 times,
Mhm.
23, 226, attempted 234. That same warm up. Um, I cut it a little bit short at trials because I was a little nervous, but at the end of the day, it was still similar to what I've been doing.
Right.
Uh, But when I watch the other jumpers or some of the other greats or the people that can jump really high, they're always warming up. They're always taking jumps. So I definitely want to implement that. And I think that's one thing that'll make all the difference. Um, but like you said, I'll have 4 more years of experience. God willing, I'll have a higher personal best.
Mhm.
I'll be able to jump the standard. So I'll go in with the standard and I'll have more knowledge of the sport.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna be stronger. I'm gonna be faster. I'm gonna be more explosive.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be more confident because I know how that at the highest level you can almost reach. The
Yeah.
highest level you can reach is Olympics. I know how at the Olympic trials. And that's something I can take away and learn from, and other people can learn from my experience.
Mhm.
A lot of people were looking, they were just hoping I was going to make the team because it just felt right. It just felt right because I helped the high jump community and I helped so many people. They couldn't see me not making that team.
Right.
But to be honest, I couldn't even see myself on the team, regardless of everything I did this year and the position I put myself in, even with no coaches, no agent. I couldn't see myself there, Troy. And that was just my mental.
Yeah.
I in my head, I was like, you did a great job, DT. Great job. But I could never see myself on the team.
Yeah.
And that's so crazy, but that's how powerful the mind is. I manifested being able to jump 7.5 on opening at 7.5.
Yeah.
Was able to confidently say, I'm coming in at 7.5. You know, when we went to Olympic trials, they were talking about their opening heights and they were talking, oh, I'm coming in. Everyone's coming in opening height. I wanted to say I wanted to come in at the second height, but I was afraid.
Mhm.
I was too afraid to say that I was going to open at 7.2, but I confidently said I'm opening at 234 with a smile.
Right.
Never been done before. I'm opening at 234. Didn't care what anybody thought, the
Yeah.
officials. But after I got done, it was like, whoa, he almost might have gotten that.
Yep.
At the Olympic trials, I could not confidently say I'm coming in at 219, a bar off jump 30, 40 times.
Yeah.
So I just learned so much about mental preparation. And I had my entire day written out, Troy, everything that I was going to do. And I did it
Mhm.
all. But when I got to that track, I
Yeah.
shrunk.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's I tell you that what is it? There's a scriptures, iron sharpens iron, right? Is iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. And so, and I think about that, and then I think about, you being in the fire is the key part, because you don't know what to do in the fire until you're in there. First of all, everybody can tell you everything about it, but it's just different when you're in there yourself. And you've had more big meet experience than I've had, but I've had my share of making it to your first big invitational in high school, going to state, right? We've all had those things. You go to state prelims, you go to state finals, and you make your first conference finals in college. And it's always this step up in level. The competition around you keeps getting better, right? And every time you get there for the first time, for you, you're the newbie, and there's other people that have been there before when you get there. And so, like you said, you're watching them, you're like, what are they doing? We're in this big comparison world, and then the next time you're there, it's not so much of I don't think maybe it's like a brain drain. Maybe it's like you're spending 50, 60, 70% of what you're thinking on over analyzing everything and over, right? Whereas the second time you're like, oh yeah, I've been here before. And all of a sudden that 70% of your brain that you're wasting is just on chill, and is now reserved, some extra power for what you really need it for, or, whatever. I remember back in the day watching for a while there in the 2000s or younger, they were talking about how I remember watching one year the Russian Olympic team, women's gymnastics team, and they go, yeah, this girl's from Kiev and she's this and she's that. And she's like 18. And I remember looking at it, go, there's no way that girl's older than 9 years old. They're trying to tell you she's 18. I'm like, she does not look like she's 18. She looks like one of those little kids, those little pixies they put in gymnastics class, right? She's 18 years old. You're like, there's no way. They got to be doing some kind of like age suppressing drugs on these girls. But I don't think they lied about anything. I think they lied about their age, because they know in gymnastics that body type is better. At that age, they go, oh, you're 4 feet tall, you're 65 pounds, you're super flexible, and you got all this stuff. And what do they do with them? They immediately start throwing them into these meets, big meets against international competition, and how do they react? Well, after a while, they start to figure it out, and I always thought it's the same case with jumpers. Like the sooner you can get up to that level, the better. And, backtrack in time, 2021, you're 3 years younger, right? You're still at Auburn. Did you have a chance at 2021 to jump into trials?
Yes, I did. My personal best was 7.3 at the time. I had jumped it one time in the year, but I didn't think that my mark was going to make it. So I didn't enter into the trials, and I didn't even tell my coach. And my coach didn't even know probably that I would have made it, but I just missed my opportunity. It was
Yeah.
just a lack of knowledge, a lack of focus. And honestly, I didn't care as much as I do now. But after I realized other people got in with my mark, then I was angry after the fact. You
Right.
know, if I wasn't on top of it, that was completely my responsibility.
Yeah.
But this time around, I made sure to be on top of it. I was actually the first person entered.
Right. Right. I get that. I saw some names on the list that might have been of interest to you, but I don't even know if you knew who they were before you were there. Michael Millslagle, who was a guy that I did a podcast with, from one of the Christian NAIA schools. Him and Shannon Reitzel have been dueling it out at the NAIA finals for at least the last 3 years. I met them both 3 years ago, my first year at Vanguard. And so I had them on podcasts, and then actually walked out to that finals and was like, hey, I know those guys. We just did a podcast. So I watched them duel it out, and they both made it there. Shannon did not compete, and Michael did. And then some other names that were on the list that were of interest to me were the three kids from Grand Valley State. So there's a D2 school, right, in our country, smaller than D1, that had three guys make it to the Olympic trials, which I was amazed by. I don't remember the last time I've seen a D1 school send three guys. Now, maybe they have. I would probably think there probably has been a time that has happened. But, in this particular Olympic trials, I was like, well, if to send three guys from the same school and have it be a DT school, the D2 school, was pretty amazing. Once you were there, and I know this is hard because you were in and out, did you stay around? Did you watch everybody else jump? Did you like
Yep.
out of there? But did you kind of soak it in and say, what does it look like when you're, doing it?
Well, yeah, for sure. After I competed, I immediately just went over to my parents. So my parents were there. My baby brother, he's about 8, and my older brother and my girlfriend. I just went over to him and I just told him I was sorry. And it's like people are looking at me like, dude, you don't have anything to be sorry about. You did a great job. But the fact that I was sorry because I didn't perform, it just shows that I just had this pressure on myself that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need. But afterwards, I did. 2 days passed by, and I went and watched the final, and I watched the guys jump in the final. And yeah, it was honestly, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was really going to happen, but Shelby ended up performing well. I
Mm-hmm.
thought Javon would perform well, but this was the first time I've seen Javon not perform at a Javon level at an Olympic
Right.
trial or state. And yeah, it was a good meet. It was fun to watch. Guys PR'd. Caleb Snowden from Arkansas, Pine Bluff. He PR'd by 1 centimeter at 227, and Shelby won it at 230,
Hmm.
and did a trials record at 236, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. Now I looked, and I am terrible at this. It takes me a while to find the results and all that. So, but I was very interested, obviously, in you. And I did see, I think I saw the live feed come up on Instagram, and for some reason I couldn't get there. You're talking about you or your brother doing the live feed, right? How did that
Yes,
go?
my
As
brother.
a quick aside, did that take off? Was there a lot of people do it?
So my brother, he tried to pull it up, but the service wasn't good in there because
Yeah.
of like all the people with their phones
Yeah.
out. I think about 200 or so people joined, and they were just my friend joined too. He said a lot of people were in there supporting, so that was great.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so that didn't go. This is what we're talking about. These are we're troubleshooting everything, right? How to make this better at the trials next time. You have your experience coming back to jump, and then how do we get a better video podcast feed from the stands? Um, what the overall impression that I got looking at it, because I remember 84, right? Dwight Stones jumped 7.8 and broke the American record. Doug Nordquist jumped 7.7 and came in second. And a guy named Milton Good, I think, jumped 5 3/4, took third. Leo Williams, another friend of Doug's, and I get to play golf with those two every once in a while. He made the team as the alternate, right? And I think it was 7 5 3/4. It was misses between him and Milton Good. So that was in 84, and I don't remember, all the other years. I haven't done enough research and look back. So what was the winning height? I thought I only saw like 7.5 or something. You said it was an Olympic trial height record. What was the winning height?
winning height was 230, 7'6.5".
7.6 1/2. Okay. And then second and third, when I saw those two names, I didn't recognize them, and I didn't think that they had trial or Olympic qualifiers. Did they?
No, they didn't. Tyus Wilson, I believe he got second place.
Mm-hmm.
He jumped 226. And I know that Caleb 227. I know that Caleb Snowden jumped 227. So they got first, second, and third.
That's like 7.5 1/4, 7.5 1/2. What is it?
Yes, 7'5 1/4".
7.5 1/4. But neither of those jumps gets them in, right?
No, they didn't have the qualifications. They didn't have the world ranking.
And then fourth place was Javon,
Yes,
and he jumped what? Only
224.
224. And then you mentioned Vernon Turner before. What did he jump? And he made the team just because he had the standard?
So he made the team just because he had the world ranking quota. He jumped 214 in the qualification and got 13th and didn't make the final.
And not without even making the final, he made it. So that's why you're thinking, yeah, if you go back retro thinking you jumped 214, would you be in the same boat with the
Yeah.
214 make?
Yep. If I would have made 214, I would have, made the team. But
Yeah.
nobody
Okay.
was thinking that.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's like you
You know,
said too. I mean, you weren't thinking about doing that. You're thinking about trying to jump 7.5 or 7.6 or 7 or something. You're not thinking,
yeah.
yeah.
I didn't want to make, I mean, no offense to him, because I mean, this is his third Olympic trials, and I'm happy for him because he's a little bit older than me, just by a year or two, but
Mhm.
he's jumped 7'7 3/4".
Yeah.
A guy like that, like he should be on a team, but at the end of the day, it's all about who goes out there and earns it, and whether he made the final or not, he beat the other guy in contention, which was me, and he made the team.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't want to make the team in the bare minimum way. I mean, looking back, I'm like, oh, it would have been great to be on a team, but I wanted to make the final, and I wanted to compete well in the final and medal in the final.
Yeah.
That's what I was looking forward to doing, but I can't necessarily choose what happens. I
Right.
can only I can only do what I believe and have faith in and live with the results.
Yeah.
And that was the result I had to live with, and it was hurtful because I can't remember the last Olympic team somebody made and only had to jump 214 and not make the final.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that would have been me or Vernon, and it was Vernon.
Yeah. Well, part of that is you guys put in obviously some outrageously good work, prior to, it's not like you were limping along and, hoping to make 214. Like you said, you guys had jumped really high preceding. So what does that do for us now? You're heading into the fall. what does your schedule look like? Are you going to jump indoors? Is there, I know on when there's Olympic years, do the worlds go away? Like I never pay attention.
So I know they got World Indoors 2025, and they're gonna have World Outdoors 2025. Indoors going to be in Nanjing, China. Outdoors going to be in Tokyo at the Olympic Stadium that they had in 2021.
Right. There was
But
no
yeah,
world outdoors this year, right? Because of the Olympics. Is that right?
yeah, not this year. Not this
Yeah.
year.
But there was a world indoor last year. Should be.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you're getting ready for indoors.
Yes.
And what do you do, man? You got to come out and train with me. I'm telling you, you shouldn't be without a coach. You need someone with a sharp eye like me. I'm your guy. I'm free. I work cheap. You got to get
Yes,
you out here in
sir.
California, man. I'm telling you, it could be an unbeatable combination. It's tough. I've trained myself, you get to that place where you're like, I think I know enough, but it's tough being the only set of eyes, right? And
Yes, and I'm done training myself. Right now I'm actually just in the search for more track and field support. You know,
Mhm.
working on getting an agent now. Just been looking around, trying to potentially get a coach for sure. Um, but yeah, I'm based out of the Atlanta area and really don't want to move. So we'll see. It's a process to it all. I mean, the whole situation that I was in was different. Like this whole situation was different, and it all depended on when I graduated college. I mean, it took me 5 years to get my engineering degree, but I had a fifth year because of COVID.
Yeah.
So it worked out. But had I graduated a year earlier or whatever, I would have already been a pro,
Yeah.
and I would have maybe had some things straightened out. But I got through into the fire, man, and I live with the consequences. And what can
Yeah.
I say? We jumped 7.5. We made our first Olympic trials. We were in position to make
Absolutely.
it, and we didn't do it. So guess what?
Yeah.
Next time we're gonna be better. We're gonna have more support in place, coach, track and field,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Oh, tremendous, tremendous upside, for sure. Great year. No reason, like you said, to look back. And it's, like you said, a lot of things. I think the deck is stacked against American, what do we want to say? Amateur. We say amateur athletics, right? When I say amateur, I think it's not basketball, football, baseball, hockey, something on TV with mega millions of dollars running through it and huge money sponsors. That does happen to track and field, but only once every 4 years. And it's not as much as people would think. Who's making all the money? The networks. Does it come down to you guys? Not so much. It's difficult. I was talking with Jeremy Fisher, and he said, it's really hard, even for the jumpers, the world-class jumpers, the ones who are jumping very well. You go to Diamond League meets, you might be able to make some money, but it's like they're not paying right now. They pay the 100, they pay the 200, they pay the 4x1s because everybody knows those and they're short. Americans have 5 seconds attention spans. I want to see something that the gun goes off and it's finished. 12 seconds later, I know who the best is. I started watching the 2021 Olympics the other night, the jumps, and it's fantastic, right? And they showed everybody, and it wasn't the regular broadcast. It wasn't Peacock. It was the YouTube, and I don't know who did it, but it literally showed the opening height and every jump, right? That's 2.5 hours. There's a reason why they don't show the high jump from beginning to end. It's because I would soak it up. I would love it, and all the high jumper types would love it. But maybe the other people watching it would just be like, oh my gosh, can we watch something other than the high jump? It's been going on for 2.5 hours. When's it going to be over? And at the same time, I'm watching going, man, there's like 5 guys made 230 in this competition, 5 or 6. It's pretty crazy. I saw Brandon Stark jumping out of his mind. I saw the guy from Korea jumping out of his mind. A couple of guys I didn't even recognize. I remember watching them going, I don't think that guy's going to be able to jump that high. They jumped that high. Javon jumped outrageously high, didn't even medal, right? So, I look at that and I'm like, but I want to see that same thing play out with you in the center, Dontavious. Got to get you there. How are we going to do that? All right. So you learned a ton. You were on your own, and that roadmap is difficult because I've been through it to a way less extent, but I did the same thing. I'm on my own. I'm training for the trials. I'm outside of the school. I mean, we talked about a lot of those things. And Jeremy, again, I encourage you to call Jeremy. I talked with him again about you. I was working at his there was two last chance meets at Chula Vista. And there was a kind of a Paralympian day. There was one blind athlete. Fun to watch if you've never seen that before, because they got the guy clapping, right? He's running down the runway for the long jump, and he's just running, and this guy's going boom, boom, boom. And I forget what he was saying to him. I think it was jump, 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 or whatever. So he can listen and run. And if he got slightly offline, he would just stop, 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 and they'd go back and start over. So we're watching those guys. We're watching guys that were amputees, right? We had guys jumping off the blades. And I picked up a rake because he was raking his own pits, right? He's this guy that runs this training center, and he's the only guy raking the long jump pit. So I go over, I'm raking long jump pit, and it was a perfect opportunity. He did that for like an hour and a half, and I just started, asking questions. And he was talking about the goal of how to help you guys, basically. I mean, that's the whole thing that he's doing there. And the difficult part is, like you're finding out, you still got to pay rent, you still got to eat, you still got to, pay for coaches, pay for trainers, pay for treatment if you get hurt, pay for this, pay for that. You got to finance the whole gig, and you're in a sport that there's not a lot of financing in, like, so you've got your engineering degree now, do you start to work? Do you start a family? What do you do while you're still trying to train and continue to work on your craft, right? Get better, find a good coach, find a place to train. You've got your stuff there in Georgia now. I know you're no longer. Where is Auburn, by the way? Is Auburn in Georgia?
It's in Alabama.
It's in Alabama. Okay, I knew
Yes.
that. I knew that. That's the Iron Bowl, right? Alabama,
Yep.
Auburn. Yeah, it's in the same state. Okay, so you were there, but now you're in Georgia. All right, and then are you? Yeah. What part are you in?
I'm in Snellville, Georgia. It's about 30 minutes from Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay, yeah. And then how close is that to where you were in Auburn?
Auburn is about 2 hours away.
Not too bad. Okay. So you've got facilities, you've got, you can do the stuff that you got to do, but it's, no roadmap, right? Last year, like you said, you're out on your own, you don't have an agent, you're trying to figure out how to do the whole thing. You've got a place to train, no coach, I don't even know how you do it, man. You're way more mature than I was. I'd have been like, how do I even get into a meet? Like finding a meet, right? That's difficult, isn't it? You can't just go to a meet. You can go to your school's meets. Like I used to go back to UCLA meets, right? Because I could get in at least. They would go, oh yeah, you can jump. You're an alumni. I would come jump at a couple of those.
Yeah, Troy, it really took trying. Like I didn't have no direction. Like I just I went on World Athletics and I searched meets, when they were, when I was going to be able to jump. And initially I was just jumping in the F rank meet. I was like, okay, F rank, F rank. That's all I got. I just got to jump high. And I was like, I'm not getting any points. I got to jump in a better meet. So
Mhm.
then eventually I looked up the B rank meets, and yeah, it was a big learning curve, man, just being on my own. And I got a lot of work done on my own. I did. But in order to be great as, I want to be, like, just from watching things, like even I was watching The Last Dance the other day. Have you seen The Last Dance with Michael Jordan?
I have not, but I've heard it highly recommended. I know I need to do so.
Yeah, it's been out for about 3 or 4 years, and I just
Mhm.
started watching it, and it was great. Like Michael Jordan had a coach. Like he's one of the greatest ever. Everybody's had a coach to
Right.
be able to achieve at the highest level. And I continuously tell myself, well, I didn't have too many options. I had an option. I could have stayed at Auburn. I could have
Yeah.
tried to find a coach in Georgia Tech, or I could have just moved and, sacrificed, whatever, living with my girlfriend for a year or whatever, just for the Olympics. But this is what I chose. And it's been a big learning curve, but it's gonna be different in the future. Like
Yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Uh,
Absolutely.
just for, having a coach, having an agent, having a training group. Like I can't really talk too much about what I'm going to be doing because nothing is solidified yet.
Hmm.
I'm working on it. Olympics hasn't happened, but there's going to be so much more support. I met this lady named Aretha Thurman. I think she was a hammer thrower, 3-time Olympian. And she was the one I had to talk to at team processing when she told me that there's no way I can be on the team because she's a nice lady. She said it the nicest way possible, but because I didn't clear a bar. Even if I had the Olympic standard, if I did not clear a bar, I was not going to make the team. And
Right.
that was something I didn't know. And that is something I'm going to share so that this never happens again to anybody else.
Right.
Because, I was attempting 234, 233 in New York and Canada, thinking that if I get this bar, I'm going to the Olympics no matter what.
Right. Right.
Little did I know, if I would have went and did what I just did, even with the standard, I would have still not made the team.
Yeah.
And that knowing that going in, I mean, that would have been having a coach, having an agent, people who knew the landscape, things that I was missing.
Sure.
I mean, I could potentially be in Paris,
Yep.
but that's life. And everybody doesn't make it on the first time around.
Yeah.
That was my first time. I wasn't successful at my state championship first time around in high school.
Right.
First SECs, I got 8th place. Ninth, first NCAAs, I got 9th place, didn't get first team. Yeah, it took learning. It took
Sure.
going once at least and trying again and trying again. And maybe this only happens 4 years, but like you said, I hate that track is this. Oh, we get attention every 4 years, but I do believe that's going to change.
I hope so too. I really do. I think there's too many good athletes and there's too many, things that you guys do, and I just keep, I hate to say money rules, right? But you're watching it. I go, you got to realize that there's corporations out there that are all about the almighty dollar. And that money has been invested in athletics. It's not just what you're watching, but some of these owners are just competitive. So you take a guy, if you go on a football team, what they make $400 million every year from the television contract. There's 32 teams. They all make $400 million, right? You do the math, it's billions of dollars. That's guaranteed. They don't have to do a thing. They could go 0-17. It's given to you. Here's your money. It's equally shared amongst all the teams. So you're going to make 400 million. They have a salary cap of 225, something like that. So you spend 225 million, you're guaranteed to make 180 million dollars, right? These guys are billionaires. That's like chump change for them. They all want to win. They don't want to beat each other. So what do they spend their money on? What do they spend the extra money on? I mean, also, you're not even bringing in the revenue that they get from the games, right? You go to a football game, it's $100 minimum. Let's say parking, food, everything else, minimum. That's probably lowballing it. You put 50,000 people in the stands paying $100 each, that's another 5 million. That's one home game. You get what? 9 of those? So what's 9 times 5 million? Another 45 million in the kitty, right? Where does that money go? You can't pay that much on your infrastructure, your coaches and secretaries and building and whatnot. They're going to put it into winning. And whatever that winning is, better nutrition, better training, a better speed guy, a better power guy, a better whatever, right? The research and development and investing in to what does LeBron James do that I think find is so amazing that most athletes never even thought about? He's into sleeping. He's put in tons of research on what should you do. Well, you should be sleeping at least 8 hours a day. He's invested in his beds, right? He says he spends over $1 million every year on himself, staying healthy, right? Best training, best this, best that, best chiropractors, right? Massages, whatever, everything you can possibly think of. And why wouldn't you if you had that kind of money, right? If you can still make $40 million a season. I don't even know what his next contract is. I think he just did 2 seasons, right? I forgot to look up the numbers. He said he did a little friendly deal so he could play with his son. That kind of money is just kind of stunning, right? You go, well, if there's money to be made on athletes like yourself, where do we start? Who's going to make the money? And right now, the way it's set up is the fat cats get the money. NBC and Peacock are going to take huge chunks of that money, right? Because they're the ones, they paid out the money and they're going to reap the benefits of everybody watching their channel. The advertisers are going to make their money, right? Because they're getting paid to put their ads on TV or vice versa, whatever. And then again, where does it filter down? The problem that we have is our teams are national teams. They're not like locally owned, whatever. You think, oh, it's us against them, right? It's us against the Russians, against the Spaniards, against the French, against whoever. And you'll get thrown out there. I think the problem the US has is we're so big and it's terribly organized as far as that goes. If there's a team, right? I mean, yes, there's a US Olympic team. Now, how long have they known each other? 5 minutes, right? They're all new, unless they're repeating guys from 4 years ago. This is a team, yeah, but it's people from all over the country. Some people got old and retired. There's new ones. Who's in charge? Like if you'd have made the team, who's the high jump coach, right?
I don't know.
Right? Nobody. I don't know who it is either. I'm sure there's got to be one. There's got to be one at the Olympic Training Center, right?
Yeah, there will be like a collegiate coach potentially that got selected. That's usually the way they do it.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I mean, and that would be a coveted position, but my brain's still wondering, like, how much would that guy make? Is he going to make 100K? You make 200K? Is it every year or just once every Olympic year? There's teachers that make 100K, right? So it's like, and again, no offense, but where does money come from? You're talking about financing coaches and athletes and teams and all this stuff. And it's like, if we don't, the biggest problem is TV revenue. You got to get that TV money flowing in through the top. So when you're talking about more exposure, my brain's obviously going, yeah, you're going to get yourself on TV, right? How are we going to do that? I can't wait. I can't wait, Dontavious. You're the engineer, man. You're smart. You're figuring it out. You're thinking around corners. You're going to figure out a way to get it done. We need bright young minds like yourself.
Yes, sir. I believe track and field will grow whenever they start putting it on TV. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's gonna have to at least start with collegiate meets.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's just showing the sprints or whatever else, it has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I think this has been a question for so long. I feel a little, I don't want to say naive, but for me to be 24 years old and trying to think about how to fix it or how to help fix it is it's like it's been going on for too long. And I guess that's why people are starting to step in now, like the Michael Johnson with his track lead, but no
Yeah.
field
Yeah.
events. But I mean, I'm okay with it. I thought it was going to be field events, but I mean, he catered to growing the sport. And
Right.
people know the 1 and 200, like you say, 1, 2, and 4. He also has distance in there up to the 16, but not many people know about hammer throw,
Right.
but long jump, triple jump, high jump.
Yeah.
The reason I think it's going to change, let's just say when we're talking about the eyes on sport, it's just because of the personalities now. You got
Mhm.
the Noah Lyles, Sha'Carri Richardson, you got rivalries, you got Fred Curley, you know, you got greats, like really great athletes and with great personalities that are
Mhm.
polarized. You
Yes.
know? And that's not going to stop. There are kids like that are gonna come up and be very talented, and they're already into social media.
Right.
Like I've met so many kids that like, oh, I want to do what you do. I want to do what you do, and some of those kids are gonna be able to do what I do one day.
Hmm.
That's gonna be great for the sport, and that's happening in every event. So
Yeah.
many kids want to be like Noah Lyles. They want to be a Fred Curley. The
Hmm.
girls want to be a Sha'Carri Richardson on the sprint side, or want to be a Mondo Duplantis in the
Yeah.
pole. Like
Uh-huh.
it's coming when we're talking about the eyes on the sport. When we get more eyes, like how we got this Netflix show, we're gonna get more money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's exciting. I think back when I was a kid, my favorite guys to watch. I loved boxing back in the day. And I didn't understand Muhammad Ali when I was a kid because I always thought Muhammad Ali was just talking. And then he was kind of looked a little old and a little slow. And, he's like, and I'm like, yeah, Muhammad Ali, whatever. And then when I started watching and learning more about Muhammad Ali and learning the stuff that he did and watching his early stuff. I mean, Muhammad Ali in his prime was just a whole nother deal. When I watch boxers, him, Sugar Ray Leonard, one of my favorite boxers of all time, I watch them do their speed agility work when they're doing rope, for instance, like mind-boggling, right? Super fast, intricate. You're like I'm watching that going, I think I'm pretty good at rope. I'm like a child compared to what they're doing. And it was like, these are some of the best athletes you ever seen. What was Muhammad's gift? Man, that guy could talk. He was just like, I'm the greatest. I'm this. I'm that. You do that, and he would go off. And what did that do, man? Everybody started watching. Everybody came in, like you said. He's polarizing. You either loved Muhammad Ali or you hated him, but there was no on the fence with him. It was one way or the other. And Sugar Ray
Yeah,
Leonard was just good looking and awesome, and he wins the gold medal. He says he's going to retire. Then a year later, he's back. He ends up winning 4 or 5 different titles. And was just super popular, great on TV, good interviews. We need that. Like you're saying, the next time, we get Dontavious, unfortunately, you're not in the SEC anymore because the SEC has money. They have football and basketball money flowing through there. There's great power schools. This whole realignment of football is all moving towards two big conferences. Everybody sees it coming. The Pac-12 just left. It's like they used to make $30 million a year. And now USC and UCLA said, oh, we'll go to the Big Ten and we'll do that. So you're going to have the Big Ten, you have the SEC. I don't know what's going to happen to the ACC, right? Big conferences, huge schools, and again, more and more money flowing downhill. And like you said, get it on TV, man. Get those dual meets. The only thing I can see that's a possible drawback, it's really hard with track and field. And it used not to be that in the old days. They used to have the US versus USSR dual meet would be on TV. This is years ago. Like, I'm thinking now that would be great if we could get back to where we once were. Everybody used to know that the United States dominated track and field. Like every year from the 40s on up, we used to win the decathlon. The men's decathlon was owned by the US. It wasn't until the 80s when Haley Thompson came along from Great Britain that all of a sudden the US was like, wait, what happened to Bruce Jenner? Where's all these other guys? All of a sudden, we had one or two more different years here and there, but that used to be our event, right? And there were a lot of things like that. The men's 4x1 or, whatever. That was a US event. It didn't matter who we got to run. We were going to beat you to a pulp because we're the USA. Now it's like I said, we can't find it. The problem I see is a little bit the team aspect, because like you said, it's all about these polarizing personalities. I got to find a way to get someone who looks good on TV, can talk intelligently, self-promote and promote the sport, right? And then say, yeah, I'm going to do this and be brash, be overconfident, be that, and it shouldn't be a problem. Like you said, with this younger generation, we're creating them, every day on Instagram. So they step up and do, like you said, the only drawback I see is like all these other sports we're talking about is teams. Lakers, Celtics, Niners, Cowboys, Kansas City versus Baltimore. You have teams and regions that are behind those teams. What's so great about college football? Rivalries. USC, UCLA, Auburn, Alabama, Penn State, Michigan State, right? Whatever. You got your classic Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, right? These are games that everybody tunes into every year. So we can get that same kind of thing going when you guys are doing your track meets. Now we're talking. And I think at the college level, it's still set up for that, but when was the last time you jumped in a dual meet, right? College dual?
I
don't
never
happen.
did. So we just recently got a dual meet at Auburn. They just did it for the first time this year. I think they used to do it back in the day, but they just now brought it back.
Mm-hmm. But see, that's the thing. I remember watching videos. They had films for us when I got to UCLA in the early 80s, and we were watching a USC UCLA dual meet at Drake Stadium, right? And I go, hey, I recognize that place. I train there every day. So I'm looking out onto the rec. There's a rec field right next to the track, chain link fence. It's like 10 people deep, looking over everybody else's shoulder like this. The stands full of people, full. And Drake Stadium can't hold that many. It's only got one side, right? That other side opens on the IM field, which is why people are staying out there. These guys are your ticket buyers, and here that was packed. This was back in the mid to late 70s. When I went against USC 4 years in a row, we killed them in the dual meet. I don't know, 200 people in the stands, 250. It was one of those stands. It's like, the athletes, the parents, and the boyfriends or girlfriends, right? That crowd. That's it. No student body, no nothing. I used to go to basketball games and volleyball games that had more people. Go down to Poly Pavilion for a men's volleyball game. It's full of people. It's volleyball, and I don't take anything away from volleyball, but back before they said scoring on every point, it used to be side out town, and that was, you'd take forever to win games. But marketability, get everybody out there, good looking young athletes like yourself, well-spoken. I love pushing the fact that you guys have your degrees, get kids going to school, right? Get them finishing. So many people, and sometimes these great athletes in basketball, unfortunately, in football, never finish their degrees. They go to school just long enough and then do what they do. And, for some people in the public, that's a turnoff. I would like to get those ones like yourself. You go, hey, they had a couple of great commercials there for a while. I said, so-and-so did this and this and this in his career, and now he's a doctor. Now he's a lawyer. Now he's an engineer like yourself. I had a buddy who was a decathlete, big guy, 6'5", Roy Carls. Never forget this guy, huge. And he ended up going through kinesiology with me. He's an orthopedic surgeon in Maryland now. He's got no hair, Roy. You're going bald. I'm just going to tell everybody. But he was funny guy and did the most you can do with your degree. He went to med school after that and became a doctor, and I'm like, that's so awesome. And he was a, unbelievable 400-meter guy and then became a decathlete. So it pushed both of those angles, get you guys on TV. I don't know how to fix the team thing. Right now we kind of got it built in. Like you said, it's Team USA versus everybody else, but it's still hard to sell that even at the Olympics, because the Olympics is just a different vibe. It's not us versus Russia. It's not us versus Spain or whatever. It's like we kind of get that world community, and it's nice to see everybody there. Hopefully we're not fighting and killing each other. We can go to the Olympics, that kind of thing. It's exciting though, right?
Yeah, and it's an individual sport, so I don't know what's going to be the end fix it. I don't think there's ever really going to be an end fix it all, but things can get better, and I believe things have gotten better. Things have gotten better, and they're just going to keep getting better. I just
Absolutely.
believe that.
Well, it's a bright future, and you're one of our bright young stars, Dontavious. I'm so glad you took the time to come in and hang out with us. I think a lesser person would have been like, "Hey, I didn't have the meet I wanted to have, so I'm going to kind of shy away." But you stood right back up and came in. I thank you for sharing your experience with us. I love to hear the fact that you're motivated and you're learning, from your experience. I was reflecting right as you said that on my own career, and I'm like, I remember that happening almost every time,
Yeah,
from CIF finals, first time I went, I got there, I had jumped 6'8" that year, but I jumped 6'4", got steamrolled because I couldn't wrap my arms around it. I came back the next year as a senior, I won it, from
yeah,
one year coming in ninth or something to winning it, and then masters meet, then I go to the state meet, never been there before, made it through qualifying, steamrolled in the final. It was like, oh, dang it. First Pac-12s I went, or Pac-10s as a sophomore, steamrolled. Next year, ninth. My final year, third. It kept getting a little bit better. And you kind of got to see it, right? You kind of got to adjust to it and figure out the speed that everybody's moving and figure out how to match. So yeah, the sooner the better. You're a young man, 25, 24, you'll be 28, you said, in 4 years. And I'm excited to see what you do in the future, Dontavious.
yes,
Can't
sir.
wait.
There's a lot of track and field to happen in between 2024 and 2028.
Right?
There's a
Yeah.
lot of teams, a lot of world
Yep.
championships, Pan American Games, NACAC
Absolutely.
championships. It's going to be a lot of opportunity, it's going to be a lot, and I'm excited for it.
A lot of great young jumpers like yourself. Like you said, Javon's not really that old. Vernon's a little bit older than you. Some of these other guys. Shelby, he's been around a little while, right?
Yeah,
How old is Shelby McEwen now?
Shelby is 28.
28. So, I mean, I used to think 28 was it. I retired at 28. I got to a place where I was like, I got to get a job. I get a real job. I ended up getting married a couple of years later. I was like, I think I'm kind of running out of time here. So there's an interesting, runway in front of you between you, like you said, coaching, finding a job. You've got your girlfriend. You guys get married. You start a family. How does that all work, right? You're introducing more variables. Like, I remember I was like, okay, I got to keep this simple. I was streamlined for a long time. And then I finally said, okay, I think it's over, but it doesn't have to be over at 28. So, you know, you guys are smarter too. I used to jump way too much. Took years off my legs, didn't I, Kirby? All right. Kirby says he wants a walk. I don't know. Can you see Kirby? Come here. Kirby. Come
Yeah,
here.
that's a lot.
Come here. All right. This is the Kirby dog. Kirby, this is Dontavious.
What's up,
Kirby
Kirby?
is a Pomsky. He's a Pomeranian Husky, aren't you? All right.
Oh, yeah.
He's telling me he needs his walk. All right, sir. Yeah, I really greatly appreciate your time. And, anything I can do, I'd be happy to be that other set of eyes. Be honored anytime you have any kind of jump videos. I love breaking down your stuff, and especially the high level technique that you're using. I find it valuable training all of my athletes from junior Olympians on up through the elites like Barbara. So anything that can help. And if I can help you, and I'm always learning from you. So I know you're not going to stop that because you can't help it.
Yes, sir. I'll be reaching out, because I enjoy this stuff. I know you love it. You've been doing it so long, so
Mhm.
I'll be reaching out.
Absolutely. All right, Dontavious, take care. Rest up a little. I know it's tough, but you got some time off in front of you, I'm sure. But what you said, basically, it's Worlds next year for you,
Yes,
indoor.
Indoor Worlds first. It's going to
Yeah.
be in March, and that's what we're going to be getting ready for.
What do you have to do to qualify to get in there?
So same deal. They're going to have a world championship standard. Don't know what it's going to be yet. It's probably going to be around that 30 to 33 range. But other than that, get my world ranking into the top 32
Yep.
and go to the trials and get it done.
Yeah.
Indoor USAs.
Yeah. Pretty much the same kind of deal, right? Okay. All right. We're looking forward to it, man. Okay, Dontavious, take care. Stay healthy. Keep working. Keep learning, living, man. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, you're welcome. That was Dontavious Hill, one of the bright young stars here in the United States. Was kind of got run over a little bit. You heard it from him. He kind of lost sense of what he was doing at the trials, and it was just the spotlight was a little too big, maybe a little bit too much pressure put on himself. He's had a chance to look it all over, and you heard it. He's going to grow. He's going to be better. He's a young, healthy, and smart, and he's going to come back in 4 years. And God willing, he'll be on that Olympic team in 2028. Here as the Olympics come back to Los Angeles for the first time in what it'll be 16 and 24. It's 40 years later, man. From 44 years later, 84 is 16 and 28. Yeah, 28 and 16 is 44. 44 years later, we finally got the Olympics back in the U.S. at Los Angeles. We had Atlanta one time, right? So until next time, we're going to be continuing to bring you great athletes here as often as we can on Raise the Bar. Please do us a favor and hit that follow button on Instagram and the subscribe button on the podcasts on YouTube. We're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and things like that. You will continue to find us, hopefully, as we grow. And until next time with the next great athlete, I think I'm trying to see what I've got here. I did a podcast this morning with Juan Jones, who is a 7'2.5" jumper, getting ready to pop over 7'4" sometime here in the future. Another hopeful for the Olympic trials in 2028. So we're going to keep them flying by you here in rapid succession. All right. Until next time, so long. Troy Haines signing off.